I'd like to welcome you to another video blog. I'm Jeff Mason, board certified clinical hypnotherapist and master medical herbalist with Abracadabra Hypnotherapy and Herbology in Boise, Idaho. And today I would like to just take a little bit of time to discuss one of my favorite plants, one of my favorite herbal remedies, and that is St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum. St. John's wort, or Hypericum perforatum, also known as Klamath weed, uh, has been known in the media and has been known in nutritional circles as a useful treatment for mild to moderate depression for the last several years now. But some of the other virtues that come with St. John's wort that most people are not aware of is that St. John's wort also contains antibiotic properties. And the antibiotic properties found in St. John's wort seem to not only be useful for various bladder and kidney infections, but also it seems to be specific when dealing with the tubercular bacterium that causes tuberculosis or TB. This has actually been clinically demonstrated in test tubes that it has the ability to destroy tuberculosis. What makes that so useful is that we are now in an age where tuberculosis is not only on the rise, but many of the strains of tuberculosis have become antibiotic resistant to all but maybe one or two antibiotics. And if they wind up developing resistance to those antibiotics as well, we'll be thrown right back into the 18th century where people routinely died of tuberculosis. So TB, also known as consumption in the old text, in the old days, is a serious infection. And St. John's wort potentially offers an alternative, especially for those who are dealing with antibiotic-resistant tuberculosis. And it may also offer mankind an answer should a tubercular strain get to a place where, honestly, it's literally resistant to everything. So St. John's wort is valuable just on that fact alone. Another thing that St. John's wort's properties contain is a potent antiviral property. Hypericin and pseudohypericin actually are both potently antibiotic, but also antiviral. They tend to be very specific against retroviruses as well. So it happens to be one of my all-time favorite antiviral agents, and is shown to me to be very effective over the years. So I've learned that I can trust it with most viral infections. And contrary to popular understanding, St. John's wort also contains antipyretic properties, which means it can be a febrifuge. It can lower fevers, and that is very useful. I have literally witnessed its ability to lower fevers in many different patients, and it lowers fevers, in my opinion, from my observations, about as well as a Tylenol or an aspirin. They're about equal as far as their ability to lower fever, but St. John's wort can lower a fever just as effectively as either one of those two medications. And then finally, the hypericin and the hypericoside that's in St. John's wort, as well as the pseudohypericin, all of which can cross the blood-brain barrier, are also potent anti-cancer agents. And what makes it so useful as an anti-cancer agent is the fact that it can cross the blood-brain barrier. That's one way how it helps depression, but it also can help another type of cancer. That's cancers of the brain, simply because it crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it can actually reach the cancer and attack it directly, influence it directly. So those are some very useful medicinal effects, and for the most part, very few people even realize that St. John's wort could do those things, that it was specific with tuberculosis, that it could lower a fever, and that it also helped to fight cancer, and especially cancers that originate in the brain, simply because of its ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. Uh, Historically, treating cancers of the brain have been very difficult simply because there's so few agents that have both anti-cancer properties and at the same time can cross the blood-brain barrier. But St. John's wort can. And I think that it deserves more research in that area just to see just how effective it really can be, and to see if we can get some scientific documentation just to its effectiveness uh, on cancer in the brain. I think that we would likely be pleasantly surprised of the findings that medicine would uncover if they would actually do an actual trial study of St. John's wort for that purpose. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I just wanted to share with you a little bit of information about one of my more favorite plants in the pharmacopoeia of the herbalist, and that is St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Mason with Abracadabra Hypnotherapy and Herbology in Boise, Idaho.